It's the nation's largest landslide, threatening 400 to 500 homes. Officials are trying to save these homes, but they may be lost. They may very well be homes lost to a landslide. I'm Russ, and this is News and Notes. Now, those of you viewing from other parts of the world, don't be amazed at these prices. This is California. Location, location, location. Also keep in mind that most of the people living here have lived in these homes for a very long time. They could not afford to live in them if they had to buy them at today's selling prices. And now, because of a unique natural disaster, they can't live in them at all. And I'm very familiar with this part of California. It's where I grew up. As a kid in high school, I went to more than a few parties thrown at friends' houses when their parents were out of town. One of those parties was back in the 1970s at a friend's house who lived in the Portuguese Bend slide area. And he showed me the cracks that had developed in the walls, but he didn't have to point out the sinking of the house. It was plain to see. I'm standing in his house, and you literally walked up to the kitchen and down to the living room in a single-story home. Now, he explained his family would be moving sometime soon, but they were having to endure the conditions of the home until his parents could find another place. They had home insurance, but it didn't cover landslides. Like most people, his family's biggest asset was the equity in their home, and their equity was lost. So fast forward to 2025, and it's the same for other homeowners in a newly formed slide area. Most, if not all, do not have home insurance that includes a landslide rider policy. So let's have a look at some of the affected homes, starting with 4362 Exultant Drive. Now you can imagine the first conversation when the effects of the slide were first noticed. Maybe a spouse says, "Honey, look at this crack. What's causing that?" And over time, that crack grew. Or maybe two neighbors are talking outside. "Does it look to you like our street is sinking?" These are regular, normal people, and for decades, this was a regular, stable neighborhood. The slide in Portuguese Bend, while only about a mile away, was not seen to be impacting this neighborhood or the ground under the homes. When these homes were sold, who knew? And even as recent as a few years ago, there was no indication any of this would be happening. And now it's happening in a big way. Let's take a look at some of the houses, and we'll start with 4362 Exultant Drive. And if you take a look at here at the front of the house and up in the right-hand corner, you'll see some interesting detail. There is evidence of the settling. Obviously a very nice house. Okay, now here again, if you take a look over to the left, and I'll zoom in on that, there you can see more evidence of the settling. Nice kitchen. Nice yard, and again we'll zoom in, and there's evidence of the settling going on. And more cracks down there on the left, so that side of the house is sagging. And you can see more there on the upper left. And a nice garage. I wish my garage looked like that. Now, if we take a little deeper look into the damage inside the home, you can see that the shower is no longer usable. The walls pulled away from part of the shower. Going here, you can see the floor is pulling away as the house is sagging. Slide is going in this direction. It's actually pulling that hardwood floor apart. So there's some problems here. And you're sitting in the living room and you notice this crack open up, and that's quite significant. And then here you have this whole side of the house, you can see, is sagging by the cracks in the roof line. And if we get some sort of a measurement on what that looks like, you would see this line across here. And I don't know how exactly accurate that is, but it's not far off in telling us the picture that the whole right side of this house is sagging. And the reason for that, of course, would be this settling of the ground here. All right, now let's take a look up this other side of the street. And here is the street before the settling occurred. And out of the view of this picture and off to the right is the house that we were just looking at. And now you can see what it looks like after the settling has taken place. That looks like 10, maybe 20 feet of lost elevation. Now I've got one more house to show you, and I'm going to go through this rather quickly, but it's the house right there in the corner, and it's right next to the home that we looked inside on Exultant Drive. And you can see it's real close to slide area. So if you're in this home and your neighbor next door has that kind of trouble, and you're right next door, you're wondering, are we next? Now this house is at 4380 Dauntless Drive in Rancho Palos Verdes, and it is a 5-bedroom, 4-bath home, 3,312 square feet, and it last sold in 2022, before all this slide activity started happening, for a price of $2.6 million. Let's have a look inside. Now I'm going to go through this quickly. If you see a picture you'd like to spend some more time with, just pause the video. I just want to give you an idea of, what's being lost when this type of incident happens, when you find the ground underneath your home is going away. It's really a beautiful house. And there you can see the street is normal, but of course it's slipped now. That's 4380 Dauntless Drive in Rancho Palos Verdes, and I gotta think they'd have a real hard time selling that one right now. It's a loss. The changes in these people's lives is very dramatic. The ground underneath them is gobbling up their homes, and with it, great financial turmoil is being caused in their lives. Some bought a long time ago and own their home outright, or they owe very little, and for them it is a total loss. For those that bought recently, maybe the financial hit isn't so significant. The home isn't worth nearly what it was, probably even when they bought it. And they'll probably lose a down payment and maybe any money they put into home improvements. But a bank is going to carry much of the loss. Now, as I provide these notes on the slide in the Seaview Estates area of Rancho Palos Verdes, it is raining. And that can't feel good. It was excessive rains that over a couple of consecutive years put this new slide area in motion. And as people sit there watching this rain come down, they got to be thinking, please, no, stop raining, no more rain. And one last note for those of you looking for a more technical presentation of what is happening from a geologic perspective, I highly recommend you visit Casey Jones' channel on YouTube. He has a video titled Massive Rancho Palos Verdes Landslide. Now, Casey's a professional engineer, a licensed geologist. He's given good attention to this slide, and he does a very good job explaining why this land is shifting and the reasons for the tragedy being experienced by 400 to 500 families with homes lost to a landslide. This is Russ with News and Notes.